The cabin sat deep in the Colorado woods, carved into the edge of a forgotten trail. The morning was pale blue. Clouds hung low like they had nowhere else to go, and the air smelled like pine needles and memory. David Mercer didn't believe in signs anymore, but this morning, something felt wrong. He stirred his black coffee with the same hand that used to hold an M4 carbine for 12 hours straight. His wrist still bore the faded scar of a burn, Operation Hollow Echo, a name that had never left him. It clung to his soul like smoke clings to your clothes after a fire. The cabin was quiet. Too quiet. The radio crackled for a second, just enough static to make his pulse flicker. Then silence again. He sipped. Stillness was supposed to be peace, but for him, it was a waiting room. A place before the next pain. His dog Shadow raised his head near the fireplace, sniffed the air, then laid back down. Something was off. A soft scrape at the front door. David set the mug down without looking. Years of training didn't vanish with discharge papers. He moved to the door silently back to the wall. Opened it fast and low. No one. Just an envelope on the wooden porch. Unmarked. Sealed. Crisp white. Inside, a photo. 3 men. One of them, him younger, heavier in muscle, lighter in the eyes. The others, Staff Sergeant Cole Jackson and Corporal Rick Tolman, both presumed dead in 2011. And yet, Cole was standing, alive, beard flecked with gray. In the background, a steel crate marked in Cyrillic letters. On the back of the photo, it's not over. Echo lives. Find Boone. David sat down hard. His knees didn't fail often, but his mind just ran into a wall made of ghosts. Echo. The mission that was never recorded, the men who never returned, and the secret that cost them more than lives. David stared at the photo for a long time. It wasn't possible. Cole Jackson was declared KIA during the final stages of Operation Hollow Echo. Officially, his body was never recovered. The story they were told, hell, the story David gave in his own debrief, was that Cole died in the ambush during extraction. But the man in the photo looked older, tired but alive. He reached for the old safe under the floorboards, the one he swore never to open again. He hadn't touched it since the day he left the Marines 13 years ago. Combination 11/22/3. The birthdays of the 3 men who didn't make it out. Inside his SIG Sauer B-226, a faded green notebook wrapped in plastic, a small satellite phone, a military-grade compass, and a folded map of southern Afghanistan with several zones highlighted in red. The ink had faded, but the truth hadn't. He sat at the kitchen table, the photograph beside the field map, and opened the notebook. The pages crackled. Written in blocky, sharp handwriting, Marwaz. Crate drop. Civilian interference. Scrubbed. Boone made final call. Tolman's last words. They knew we were coming. David swallowed hard. They knew we were coming. The chopper blades had barely stopped spinning when they hit the ground. The air in Marwaz was hot and metallic, laced with smoke and fear. It wasn't just another village, it was a ghost town pretending to breathe. Colonel Boone's voice over comms was calm as ever. Team Echo, move 2 clicks east. Your contact is waiting. No mistakes. Cole was right behind David, as always. He was laughing under his breath. He always laughed before something went wrong. You think the colonel's going to pull another wild goose chase? Cole asked. I think he already did. Their objective was simple on paper. Locate a series of crates allegedly containing Russian-made Strellas sold to Taliban forces. Retrieve the crates, secure the informant, get out clean. Nothing was ever clean in Kandahar. The firefight started 20 minutes in. 2 RPGs, a rooftop sniper, and a suspiciously well-coordinated ambush. Tolman was hit first. Shoulder, then gut. David dragged him behind a burned-out truck, only to realize the crates were already gone. A helicopter, unmarked, silent, had lifted them out minutes before they arrived. Their informant never showed. And in the chaos, Cole went missing. Boone ordered immediate exfil. David never forgave him. He lit a cigarette, something he hadn't done in years. The first drag hit like a memory he didn't want to taste. He called a number he hadn't dialed in a decade. The phone rang once. "Jesus," came the voice on the other end, cracked and dry. "You're alive." "I need to find Boone." A pause, then, "He runs a firm now." "Out of Arlington. Black Ridge Tactical." "And Elena Rojas?" "Ghosted. No one's heard from her since she left CIA. Some say she married into witness protection. Others say she's buried in Poland." David hung up. He knew better than to believe rumors. Elena was too stubborn to die that easily. David opened the garage door quietly. Noah was bent over the engine of an old Triumph Bonneville, oil-stained hands and earbuds in. He didn't look up. "I'm leaving for a few days," David said, voice low. "Sure you are." David waited. Noah finally looked up, his eyes sharp and tired. "This about them again?" he asked. David nodded. "Someone's trying to pull back what we buried." Noah shrugged. "Maybe it deserves to be dug up." David almost smiled. His son was more perceptive than he gave credit for. "If I don't come back," he said, "there's an envelope in the closet. Burn it without opening." "Sure," Noah said again, this time quieter. David left him with the bike, the tools, and 1,000 questions he'd never answer. He drove through the night, I-70 stretching like an old scar across the landscape. Somewhere between Denver and Kansas, a black SUV appeared in his rearview mirror. No headlights, no plates. He tapped the brake twice. Standard military check. The SUV adjusted pace. He took the next exit and looped around an abandoned way station. The SUV didn't follow. It was gone. But he knew better. Someone was watching. Black Ridge Tactical was hidden behind layers of corporate jargon and security glass. From the outside, it looked like an accounting firm. On the inside, former SEALs, Rangers, Marines, men who now answered to paychecks, not flags. David walked through the front doors like a ghost. No badge, no ID. Boone was at the range shooting paper targets with unnatural calm. "I expected you sooner," he said without turning. "I had to finish my coffee." Boone finally looked over his shoulder. His face had aged well, like old iron, scarred but reliable. "You saw the photo?" David nodded. "I saw more than that." Boone sighed. "Cole should have stayed dead." David stepped forward. "He's alive, and he's being moved." "To where?" "That's what I'm here to find out." Boone pulled out a file from a locked drawer. Redacted pages, a photo of Cole from drone footage. "Captured near the Uzbek border. Being held by a private firm, Black Echo Ops." David felt the blood drain from his face. "Ward," he whispered. "Jason Ward?" Boone nodded. "You're not going after Malone?" "I wasn't asking for permission." "You're not asking for backup either." "I never do." Boone exhaled slowly. "Then take this. You'll need it." He slid over a sat phone, a burner passport, and an old contact card. Elena Rojas. David checked into a small roadside motel on Route 1, the kind of place that didn't ask questions and didn't leave receipts. The walls were yellowed with time, the AC wheezing like it was dying in slow motion. He placed the sat phone on the nightstand and locked the door with both the chain and a wedge under the knob. He never trusted a lock you didn't install yourself. The file Boone gave him sat on the bed. David opened it again, scanning every word. The mission report was vague. Too vague. Captured near Uzbekistan. Held in an undisclosed compound. Identity confirmed via satellite. Voice print match, 97%. If this was accurate, Cole had been alive for years. Not rescued, not traded, held. By who? That was where the second file came in, marked Jason Ward. David had never met Ward, but the name carried weight. Former Force Recon. Discharged under gray circumstances. Mysteriously wealthy within a year. His company, Black Echo Solutions, now operated in legal limbo, outsourced by everyone, owned by no one. And they were ghosts. Just like Operation Hollow Echo. Around midnight, David stepped out onto the motel's balcony. The parking lot was empty, except for one car that hadn't moved all day. A black Chrysler. Tinted windows. Engine still warm. He noted the license plate. Federal tag. David ducked back inside, pulled a small device from his bag, a jamming unit. Cracked open the motel's power panel and killed the security cameras with a flick of a fuse. Then he circled around the back lot. The Chrysler was empty. Clean. But a faint humming from the passenger seat gave it away. A GPS tracker. David grabbed it, smashed it under his boot, and slid a paper note under the windshield wiper. I see you too. He didn't sleep that night. At dawn, someone knocked on his door. Once. Then twice. Slow and deliberate. David raised his weapon and approached. Elena Rojas, said a voice on the other side. Female. Calm. Unshaken. He opened the door. There she was. A decade older, but sharp-eyed and composed. Her coat was buttoned tight, a flash of metal on her hip. She wore no makeup, carried no luggage. You really came, David said. I never left, Elena replied. Not really. He stepped aside. They didn't hug. They sat across from each other in silence for a moment. I saw the photo, Elena said. You? He asked. Number someone inside sent it. I got it a few hours before you did. David narrowed his eyes. Who? I don't know yet, but they want us both on this. She pulled a USB stick from her pocket and placed it on the table. Footage from a drone 2 months ago, near the Uzbek border. Your friend Cole was seen inside a compound, surrounded by Black Echo personnel. He's alive. David inserted the stick into his laptop. The footage flickered on. Cole, older, bearded, bruised, stood in a cell, blindfolded. A man in tactical gear approached him and removed the cloth. The man's face was blurred by distance, but the voice was clear. Jason Ward. You're not done talking, Sergeant. Cole didn't flinch. He just said, Tell Mercer, it wasn't supposed to be me. David froze. What the hell does that mean? He muttered. Elena leaned back. It means he thought someone else should have been taken. Maybe you. David's hands clenched. I need to get to Ward. You won't get close. I'll find a way. Elena sighed. You always do. The next few hours were spent planning. Ward's last known compound was in Karakalpakstan, near the Aral Sea. Technically not in any country. Outside NATO jurisdiction. A legal gray zone where mercenaries trained and sold information. David and Elena would travel under aliases. Boone had arranged the documents, transportation, and burner gear. They were going into a war zone without backup. Just like before. At the airport, they moved in silence. 2 professionals. Nothing romantic. Only history and unresolved debts between them. As they passed through a security checkpoint, Elena noticed something. A man in a TSA uniform watching them too closely. Not scanning others, just them. Elbow tap. 10 o'clock, she whispered. David didn't look. Instead, he stepped to the side and accidentally dropped his boarding pass. As he bent to pick it up, he saw the agent reach to his earpiece. Not TSA. Private. David rose and turned. The man was gone. Looks like Ward knows we're coming, Elena said. David's eyes narrowed. Good. As the plane took off, David stared out the window. Beneath the clouds, the land he had once escaped now pulled him back like a riptide. Beside him, Elena rested her head, eyes closed but not sleeping. David didn't speak, but inside the fire had reignited. The mission wasn't over. Cole was still alive, and something deeper, something rotten, was buried inside Operation Hollow Echo. This wasn't about rescue anymore, this was about truth. The air in Nukus was dry and sharp, heavy with dust and the metallic tang of oil and gunpowder. It didn't welcome strangers. Their contact, an Uzbek fixer named Rahman, was already waiting with a sand-colored Toyota Hilux, its doors patched with different shades of paint and bullet dents that looked recent. "You're late," he said to Elena, spitting a sunflower seed into the dust. "We're alive," she replied, sliding into the front seat. David tossed their gear into the back, then climbed in silently. He didn't trust Rahman. He never trusted anyone who smiled before a mission. Ward's compound is 30 clicks west of Moynock. It's not on any map. Nobody lives out there unless they've got something to hide. "Sounds perfect," David muttered. The road was cracked and broken, a remnant of Soviet industry long buried by time and sand. Along the way, David spotted rusting ships beached in dry earth. What used to be the Aral Sea was now a desert graveyard. He turned to Elena. Why would Ward keep Cole alive? Why not just bury him with the others? Maybe he needed leverage. Maybe Cole knew something. Or maybe, David said, this was never about one mission. Elena didn't answer, because she didn't know either. Rahman dropped them a mile out from the site. No lights, no roads. Just the silhouette of metal fencing in the dusk. David and Elena crawled through scrub and stone, night vision on, weapons tight to their chests. Inside the compound, 6 guards rotated in patterns, ex-military clearly, not locals. Their posture, their footwork, it screamed of training David knew all too well. They waited. At 200 hours, the gate opened. 2 trucks came through. In the back of one, a cage. Inside, Cole Jackson. Still alive. Still breathing. And now, awake. The sight of Cole behind that cage hit David like shrapnel. He remembered Tolman bleeding out in his arms in Kandahar, whispering the words, "They knew we were coming, not insurgents. Someone on our side." The wound reopened in David's mind. What if Hollow Echo had been a setup? What if they were sent there to die? And what if Cole had lived long enough to know who pulled the strings? At 0300, they breached the outer fence under the cover of drone static from Elena's handheld scrambler. They moved like shadows, silent, swift. 2 guards neutralized. 1 tower blacked out. They reached the cage. David dropped to one knee, lockpick in hand. Cole's face turned slowly toward him, bruised but alert. "Mercer?" he whispered. "I thought you were dead," David said. "Me too." The lock clicked. Then gunfire exploded from the main building. They were made. Floodlights roared to life. "Elena, cover!" David shouted, shoving Cole toward the side wall. 3 Black Echo men stormed the yard. David dropped one with a headshot. Elena took another to the leg, but kept firing. Cole grabbed a guard's pistol and limped into cover. The situation turned fast. Too fast. Someone had tipped them off. They barely escaped. Through the back wall, down into a dry sewage trench Rahman had marked earlier on the map. By dawn, they were gone. Cole was bleeding. Elena was fading. David was burning inside. Back in Rahman's safe house, Cole lay on a cot, IV in his arm. David sat nearby, silent, watching. When Cole woke, he whispered, "You weren't supposed to come for me." "I don't leave men behind." "You did once," Cole said, eyes hollow. David didn't argue. Instead, he asked, "What happened to you?" Cole coughed, grimaced, then said, Ward took us. Not because of what we found, because of what we knew. Knew what? Cole stared at the ceiling. Boone lied. Hollow Echo wasn't about weapons. It was about data. Biometric research. Civilian experimentation. The crates were empty. The informant was a test subject. We were disposal. David froze. His hands shook. You're saying we were bait? Cole nodded. And Boone sent us in anyway. That night, a call came through to the satellite phone. No number, just a voice. David Mercer. It was Jason Ward. Smooth, cold, controlled. I admire your loyalty, but you're in over your head. David said nothing. Ward continued. Cole is yours now, for now, but some stories were never meant to be told. Hollow Echo died for a reason. Walk away, or I bury the rest of them too. The call ended. David stared at the dark screen and said quietly, Then I guess we start digging.